After World War II, America moved to the suburbs chasing freedom, space, and the promise of the good life. But hidden beneath those quiet streets is a financial time bomb, one so costly that if ignored, it could bankrupt countless towns and cities. Why are the very neighborhoods built to secure our dreams now threatening our future? The answer begins where the story of suburbia itself began. In the late 1940s, a wave of new policies and cultural forces swept across the country, reshaping where and how Americans lived. The GI Bill opened the doors of homeownership to millions of returning veterans, offering low-interest loans and slashing down payments. For the first time, families who had grown up in crowded cities could imagine a house of their own, with a yard, a driveway, and space to grow. At the same time, federal mortgage insurance and new lending rules made it easier than ever to secure a loan, fueling a surge in demand for new homes beyond the city limits. Developers like William Levitt seized the moment. In 1947, Levittown, New York began rising from potato fields at a pace the country had never seen. Houses assembled in under 24 hours, row after row, thanks to assembly line construction and standardized designs. By the end of the decade, thousands of families moved in each month, drawn by the promise of affordable, modern living. Suburban homeownership soared. Between 1940 and 1960, the share of Americans living in suburbs jumped from less than 20% to over 30%, while the national homeownership rate climbed from 44% to 62%. Behind every picket fence and two-car garage was a web of new infrastructure: roads, water lines, sewers, spreading farther with each new development. Federal highway spending and a growing car culture made it all possible, letting workers commute from quiet neighborhoods to bustling city jobs. The dream of space, safety, and prosperity felt within reach for millions. But every new street and cul-de-sac came with hidden obligations, setting the stage for costs that would surface decades later. Every new suburb brings with it an invisible price tag, measured not just in dollars, but in miles. A single suburban neighborhood often needs 3 times as much road, water, and sewer infrastructure per household as a traditional city block. The difference is built into the geometry. Long, looping streets and cul-de-sacs stretch utilities thin, so each family is responsible for a much larger share of asphalt, pipe, and cable. Engineering standards set the clock ticking from the day these assets go into the ground. Local streets are designed to last 25 to 35 years before needing full reconstruction. Water and sewer mains are rated for 50 to 80 years, but repairs and replacements come sooner if maintenance is deferred. Streetlights, signals, and sidewalks each have their own timelines. Most need major work or full replacement within a generation. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates the U.S. faces a $2.6 trillion infrastructure funding gap over the next decade, with suburban roads and utilities among the most underfunded. In a typical suburb, 10 miles of local road, 3 miles of arterials, and 15 miles of water and sewer lines serve just a few thousand households. When that infrastructure reaches the end of its life, replacement costs can top $195 million for a single suburban area, around $39,000 per household over 50 years. Unlike in dense urban grids where many people share the cost, low-density suburbs dilute the responsibility across fewer taxpayers. The result? A growing backlog of repairs and a financial burden quietly accumulating beneath every freshly paved street. Property taxes from a typical suburban home rarely cover the true cost of keeping up the roads, pipes, and services that surround it. When analysts break down the numbers, the gap becomes clear. Maintaining all that spread out infrastructure adds up to about $780 per household per year, just to keep things running on schedule. That figure does not include debt payments or unexpected repairs. It's the baseline needed to stay even. Yet the tax yield from a single-family lot stretched across wide lawns and winding streets almost never reaches that mark. Cities try to make up the difference with sales taxes or permit fees, but those streams fluctuate and often fall short. Supporters of the suburban model argue that the space, quiet, and privacy are worth every penny. They point to parks, schools, and safe streets as proof of value. But the math tells a different story. Each new cul-de-sac locks in a deficit, leaving local officials searching for ways to fill the gap as maintenance bills come due and revenue lags behind. Chuck Marone, a civil engineer from Brainerd, Minnesota, spent years combing through city budgets and infrastructure plans. What he found was unsettling. In the 1990s, Brainerd collected roughly $2.2 million in development fees from a wave of new suburban neighborhoods. Instead of saving those funds for the future upkeep of freshly built streets and pipes, the city used most of the money to repave older roads elsewhere. The new suburbs, with their wide streets and buried utilities, looked like a windfall at first. But by the early 2020s, the infrastructure in those same neighborhoods began to age out all at once. Annual maintenance bills ballooned to over $500,000, while property taxes from the area brought in less than half that amount. To close the gap, city leaders faced a choice: raise taxes, cut services, or approve even more development to chase another round of quick cash. As Marone put it, Brainerd was using tomorrow's growth to pay yesterday's bills, trapped in a cycle that could only last as long as the city kept expanding. Federal and state subsidies quietly prop up the suburban model, shifting costs away from local budgets and onto taxpayers everywhere. Highway funding bills, like the 2015 FAST Act, reward cities and states for building new lanes and expanding roads, while maintenance gets less attention. The formula is simple: more asphalt means more federal dollars, even if existing streets crumble. Gas taxes collected at the pump help pay for these projects, but the true costs don't stop at the edge of the pavement. Environmental impacts like runoff, air pollution, and lost habitat rarely show up in local property tax bills. Health costs from car dependence, including higher rates of obesity and respiratory illness, are absorbed by the broader healthcare system, not by the neighborhoods that generate them. These hidden subsidies make suburban living appear cheaper than it is, masking the financial reality and leaving the public to pick up the tab for sprawl's long-term consequences. In 2015, Lafayette, Louisiana's City Council gathered for what was expected to be a routine budget hearing. Instead, auditors delivered a number that stopped the room cold. The city's infrastructure backlog had reached $1.2 billion. That figure landed like a thunderclap, more than 10 times Lafayette's annual general fund revenue. Council members pressed for clarification, some openly questioning how the gap had grown so large without warning. Local news headlines called it a homegrown fiscal cliff. Residents packed public meetings, demanding answers as city staff explained that decades of suburban growth had quietly stacked up obligations. Roads, drainage, utilities, all now aging at once. The audit showed that even if Lafayette spent every dollar of its yearly budget on repairs, it would take a full decade to catch up, with nothing left for police, fire, or schools. Elected officials faced an impossible menu: service cuts, tax hikes, or halting new development entirely. The shock in Lafayette made a national example of the invisible debts built into the suburban model and forced the city to confront hard truths about what it could and could not afford. Cities facing the reality of suburban insolvency are not without options. Some communities have begun to rethink growth, shifting their focus to incremental development within existing neighborhoods. By allowing small apartment buildings, accessory dwellings, or mixed-use projects on underused lots, cities can boost revenue and make better use of infrastructure already in place. Zoning reform plays a central role. Removing bans on multifamily housing and streamlining approval for infill helps neighborhoods grow more organically without stretching city budgets thin. Municipalities are also creating dedicated renewal funds, setting aside a portion of annual revenue to cover future repairs instead of relying on unpredictable growth. Impact fees in special assessment districts can require new developments to cover the full cost of their infrastructure, reducing the risk of hidden deficits. Some cities invest in complete streets, making it safer to walk, bike, or use transit, which lowers long-term maintenance costs and builds healthier communities. These strategies offer a practical path forward, trading the illusion of endless expansion for a more resilient, balanced approach. In 2020, Lafayette, Louisiana's audit revealed a $1.2 billion infrastructure backlog, over 10 times its annual budget. This crisis is not unique. Decades of post-war policy, from the GI Bill to federal highway funding, fueled suburban growth while embedding long-term costs most cities cannot cover. Across the U.S., municipal documents and financial reports confirm that low-density suburbs require far more roads, pipes, and services per resident than traditional neighborhoods, but yield less tax revenue per acre. The math is clear. property taxes and development fees cannot keep pace with rising maintenance needs. Yet the full national scale of unfunded liabilities remains unknown, as many communities have not completed comprehensive audits. As thousands of miles of aging infrastructure reach the end of their lifespan, cities must confront whether to continue the same pattern or adopt proven alternatives. Evidence shows that the current suburban model, without major reform, places local budgets at risk of insolvency.